be truly curious about someone else, you have to bring a level of compassion, empathy, and not judgment to that conversation. Do I got
That
that
is
right?
spot on. That is spot on. You can't, from my perspective, this is the Kevin Jones view of the world. You cannot
Hmm.
have, if you don't have those things, you are eliminating or narrowing your scope of ability to be curious and I think even more importantly, to maintain curiosity. Because often what can happen,
Mm.
especially in coaching, and you may have noticed this already as you're going through your own coaching journey, we can start curious and then you say something to me and I go, I don't know about that. There, right there, there's judgment creeping in. So there is the starting with curiosity and then maintaining curiosity throughout what is being said without resorting to judgment.
I do need to learn this. I have found in my coaching practice, as someone who loves to solve
Mm,
problems, and I think that's, I was sharing this with you earlier. I feel like I'm very curious in the space of problem
yeah.
solving, but that's usually around a task or a group thing. When it comes to individuals, I probably need to grow
Mm,
in that area, and I think the coaching program I'm in is definitely going to help me with that. But I find myself in some of those coaching conversations, where, I'm like, okay, I know the solution. I
yep.
know the solution. How can I start? And I might have done this recently. I might have started leading the witness to try to get them to the solution I wanted.
Mm,
And I think there's a form of judgment in there. Um, and a turning off of the curiosity and the turning on of wanting to be right or wanting to be helpful,
mm,
maybe might be a better way of saying that. What do you find to be effective when you might have some of those similar pangs, or maybe earlier in your coaching when you would fall into that same trap that I just described? What were some of the things
mm.
that you did to stay curious?
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to mind is, and this is something I learned at Hudson where I went through my coaching program, having that moment when you start to notice, is this is this their agenda or is this my agenda? And just answering that question was such a powerful way for me to reset if I was starting to move into my own agenda. The other thing
Mm-hmm.
that I find super helpful is if I start thinking, because I think as consultants, we are hired to solve problems. And so to shift from consultant mode to coaching mode also requires us to pull something back from consulting, which is what questions have I asked the client before I move into problem solving mode? Am I ready to help them solve this problem together? Is my solution going to work for them? And so the second thing that I do, and I find I do this more and more, is I will ask them, what solutions have you tried?
Yeah. No. There's a little bit of like, okay, no, you just said the first three things I was going to suggest. So let's not suggest those. I'll look smarter by asking that question, which is probably isn't the right way to think about that one.
But I think to your point, I think the challenge there is we can know an answer and we can know a solution and it may work. I ask myself, and this is maybe the third thing I do, um, am I asking this question in the service of them? Does this help them get closer to finding the solution that works for them? Because it's like
Mm-hmm.
anything, right? If I if I tell you what I think you should do, you may go off and do it. If you come to a conclusion of what you think you should do on your own, you're more likely to not only do it, but sustain the change that comes about because you've embraced it at a more visceral level.
So I just need to put my solution back in my cool little messenger bag, and help facilitate them. So I've achieved that in consulting. In coaching, again, I'm new to this journey, just a few months into it, but I find myself like, inching into the front of the seat, going,
Mm, mm.
I know what you need to do, and I need to learn to sit back in my chair and become to ask those questions of myself, to notice that I'm beginning to get into solutioning mode, and is this in the best service of my coachee
Mm,
versus is this in service of my ego,
mm.
or my desire to be helpful?
Yeah, yeah. And you said something there. There's another term that I learned in my own coaching journey. Am I getting into their story?
Hmm.
And so, am I listening to your story or have I now jumped into it?
I like that so much. I'm writing it down.
And the power of that is I if I am curious about you and I want to hear your story, as soon as I insert myself into it by giving my opinion, I've changed the story. I've changed the energy. Now I'm part of the narrative. And how can I be part of the narrative and be curious at the same time? I can only do that if I'm listening to your pure story and where you want to take it without my interference, without my interjection.
So when you are able to, show up with compassion and empathy, when you're able to stay in curiosity for someone else, what's the impact that your talent of
Mm.
intentional curiosity has on others?
I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna answer that, but I'm also going to tell you the impact it has on me first, because this is what I think is the
Mm.
value in this, in terms of how we approach it. The value to me is that it takes us places that we may never have gone if I had thought my answer was the right one. So the journey, this like winding path, it takes you into so many beautiful places you couldn't have possibly imagined. I think for the individual, I hope for the individual, as I'm in the service of them, is that it unlocks new ways of thinking about a challenge. We often talk about your mere presence in the coaching relationship is an intervention. And what I find more often than not is when I am in this coaching relationship, the individual, just by me asking questions, by making observations, by connecting what they said 20 minutes ago to what they're saying now, it opens up new ways of seeing an issue, a problem, a relationship that they would not have thought about before, because we're all on our own path until someone asks the question, someone makes the observation. And so the value for them, I want to believe, and what I have seen time and time again, is just being able to break those thought patterns and create new ones.
Yeah, and coaching will also we'll talk about how people are creative, resourceful, and whole.
Yes.
Like they can come up with the best solutions for them at that
Yes.
time. Um, and I I want to embrace that. Obviously, in those moments when I'm coming up with my own solutions and trying to interject them, I'm not living into that value. But I do believe it logically, and I'm a good friend of mine, of ours actually, from EY, told me early on before I joined the coaching program that the biggest benefit that he had going through coaching was what he learned about
Mm-hmm.
himself and how to self-regulate and be radically present for our
Yes.
coachees. And that's what was the tipping point for me, hearing
Mm.
that, the growth that I'm going to go through, was something I was really, it catapulted me into the program, and I'm feeling it.
I love that, Roger, and I love the radically present notion. I mean, I think it's the other side of the coin of intentional curiosity, because to be radically present is not just about I'm here, I'm in the moment. It is making sure that others know that and that they sense it, and that you have created an environment where your presence invites others to do the same thing. And
Hmm.
I think about it, I use even just a basic example to your point about the journey that coaching takes you on in your own life. I have noticed when I'm out there in the real world, kind of going back to what I was saying about my own personality being more of an introvert, at parties now, going out to social engagements, I don't feel exhausted at the end of the evening anymore because I don't feel like I have to perform anymore. I get to
Hmm.
go and ask questions of others. I get to take my curiosity and ask. And what better topic than to talk about yourself? And so people love when you ask them questions. I get to find out something. What am I going to learn about this person at this party that I didn't know before? I get to take that curiosity, get to know more. I get to come home at the end of the evening and talk about all the things that I learned and found out about others, as opposed to how many people did I tell about myself. And there's something so wonderful about taking what you learn in coaching and being able to apply it to other areas of your life. And in this case, it also has the added benefit of I don't dread going out to things anymore. I don't have that social anxiety because it's not about me anymore.